You walk to your car in an empty parking lot at night. Your eyes flick to every shadow. Your pulse ticks up before you've even seen anything. You tell yourself you're being paranoid. But the real answer is far stranger. That flinch, that scan, that flicker of dread, it isn't new. It's older than cities, older than language, older than fire itself. It comes from millions of years spent as something else entirely. Not a predator. Prey. For most of human history, you were not the most dangerous thing in the room. You were the meal. Anthropologist Donna Hart spent years studying the bones of early hominins, and her conclusion reshaped how scientists think about human origins. Fossil skulls from South Africa show puncture marks that match, almost perfectly, the spacing of leopard teeth. Not a coincidence. A crime scene. Your ancestors weren't standing at the top of the food chain, gazing down at the savannah like conquerors. They were small, slow, clawless, and constantly hunted. Hyenas took them. Crocodiles took them. Eagles, according to some fossil evidence, may have literally carried off their children. So how did a soft, slow, defenseless primate survive? Not through strength, through strategy. The first trick was simple. Stand up. Bipedalism, the ability to walk upright, gave early humans something crucial: height. Standing tall let them scan tall grasslands for danger long before it got close enough to strike. A four-legged animal sees the world at knee height. An upright human sees over it. That extra foot and a half of elevation bought precious seconds, and seconds were survival. But height alone wasn't enough. The second trick was numbers. Humans are social to an almost obsessive degree, and that wasn't an accident either. Anthropologist Hrdy has argued that human cooperation, our willingness to share childcare, food, and vigilance, was not a nice side effect of evolution. It was the survival strategy itself. A lone human against a lion has no chance. A group of 30 humans, constantly watching, calling out warnings, throwing rocks in unison, becomes something predators learn to avoid entirely. Group living turned weak individuals into a collective threat. Ever wonder why you feel uneasy being alone in the dark, but calm the moment someone else is nearby? That's not a coincidence. That's the oldest safety mechanism you own, still quietly running in the background of your mind. Then came the third trick, and it might be the strangest one of all. You don't have fur. Not real fur, anyway. Most land mammals are covered in thick, insulating coats. Humans are, comparatively, naked. For decades, scientists debated why. The leading explanation, championed by researchers like evolutionary biologist Peter Wheeler, points to heat. Losing body hair let early humans cool down through sweating far more efficiently than furred animals, who rely on panting instead. Why does that matter for surviving predators? Because it turned humans into something almost no other predator on the savannah could match: distance runners. Harvard biologist Daniel Lieberman has spent decades studying what's called persistence hunting, a technique some hunter-gatherer communities still use today. A cheetah can outsprint a human easily, but a cheetah overheats in minutes. A human, sweating instead of panting, walking and jogging under the brutal midday sun when most predators are resting in the shade, can keep going for hours. Early humans didn't outrun danger. They outlasted it. The same trait that let them chase down antelope across open plains also let them escape animals that could kill them in seconds, simply by refusing to stop moving long after the predator had to. Take a moment and think about that. Your ability to jog around the block for 40 minutes without collapsing is a leftover survival weapon. A body built not for speed, but for relentlessness. There was a fourth trick, and it turned the weakest species on the savannah into something predators genuinely learned to fear: throwing. Almost no other animal on Earth can do what you can do without thinking twice. Wind up, plant your feet, and hurl an object with speed and accuracy at a target 30 feet away. Chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, can throw, but clumsily and rarely with any real precision. Humans are different. Biomechanics researchers, including work published by Roach at Harvard, have shown that the human shoulder evolved a unique combination of flexibility and elastic energy storage, almost like a slingshot built into your joint. That single adaptation let early humans hurl rocks and sharpen sticks hard enough and accurately enough to injure or drive off animals many times their size and strength, all without ever getting close enough to be clawed or bitten. Suddenly, distance stopped being a disadvantage. A human standing 40 feet from a hyena wasn't helpless anymore. A group of humans, all throwing at once, could turn a hungry predator's confident approach into a fast, humiliating retreat. Teeth and claws lost their advantage the moment humans learned that danger could be pushed back before it ever arrived. Then came a fifth trick, quieter than the others, but arguably just as important: warning each other. Vervet monkeys, extensively studied by biologists including Robert Seyfarth and Dorothy Cheney, have distinct alarm calls for different predators. One sound for a leopard, another for an eagle, another for a snake, each one triggering a different, specific escape behavior in the troop. Early humans almost certainly did something similar, and arguably took it much further. Language itself may have partly evolved from the pressure to communicate danger precisely and quickly. A vague grunt could get someone killed. A specific warning, this direction, this distance, this predator, could save an entire group in seconds. Think about how instinctively you still do this. You see something startling, and the words come out before you've even decided to speak. Watch out, behind you. Look, that reflex to warn others first, sometimes even before protecting yourself, isn't good manners. It's an ancient survival circuit, wired in so deep it overrides conscious thought. And then there was the group's most vulnerable resource of all: children. A human infant is astonishingly helpless for astonishingly long, unable to walk, run, or defend itself for years after birth. On a predator-filled landscape, that should have been a fatal flaw. Instead, anthropologist Sarah Hrdy has argued it became one of humanity's greatest strengths through something called alloparenting. Unlike most primates, where a mother alone protects her offspring, early human children were watched over by an entire network: mothers, grandmothers, older siblings, even unrelated group members, all sharing the burden of vigilance. More eyes watching the tree line, more adults ready to grab a child and run. A slow, defenseless infant, surrounded by a web of caretakers, became far harder to pick off than a single mother could ever manage alone. And then there was the trick that changed everything: fire. Primatologist Wrangham has argued that controlled fire didn't just give early humans warmth and cooked food, though both mattered enormously. Fire gave them something predators had never had to contend with before: a weapon that worked while humans slept. Large cats, wolves, hyenas, almost every dangerous predator on Earth shares one instinct in common: they avoid flame. A ring of fire around a resting group meant that, for the first time, humans could sleep on open ground without a guaranteed chance of being dragged away in the dark. Before fire, sleep itself was a vulnerability. After fire, it became almost safe. Almost. Because even with fire, even with numbers, even with height and endurance, danger never fully disappeared. And that's where one final trick comes in, one you still use today without realizing it: vigilance shared across a group. So no single person had to carry the full weight of watching. Modern researchers studying hunter-gatherer sleep patterns have found something remarkable. Groups like the Hadza in Tanzania rarely have everyone asleep at the exact same time. Someone is almost always stirring, checking, listening. Sleep, for early humans, was never a single unbroken block. It was staggered, shared, communal. One person's restlessness was the whole group's protection. Does that sound familiar? The friend who always seems to wake up at the smallest sound. The parent who sleeps lighter after having a child. The unease you feel falling asleep in an unfamiliar place. None of that is a flaw in your biology. It's a feature inherited from ancestors who literally could not afford to all lose consciousness at once. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. None of these systems have switched off. Your brain still runs the same threat detection software it ran 200,000 years ago. The amygdala, the small almond-shaped structure buried deep in your brain, still fires the instant it detects a fast movement in your peripheral vision, still spikes your heart rate before your conscious mind has processed what you even saw. It doesn't know the difference between a lion in tall grass and a car backfiring on City Street. To your amygdala, both are the same category of problem. Survive first. Understand later. That's why loud, sudden noises make you flinch even when you know, logically, you're safe. That's why walking alone at night feels different than walking with a friend, even on the exact same street. That's why a group of strangers laughing behind, you can spike a flicker of unease before you've even turned around. You are running ancient software on a modern operating system, and most of the time, it doesn't realize the predators are gone. Because here's the twist. They mostly are. You will likely never encounter a leopard, a cave hyena, or a saber-toothed cat in your entire life. The predators that shaped nearly every instinct you carry have been extinct or functionally absent from your daily existence for thousands of years. And yet the wiring remains. Fully intact, fully active, waiting, which raises a strange, almost uncomfortable question. What is all of that ancient machinery doing now? If it isn't fighting off lions anymore, it's finding new predators, deadlines instead of hyenas, social rejection instead of eagles overhead, a notification at midnight that spikes your heart rate the same way a snapping twig once did in tall grass. Your body cannot always tell the difference between a genuine physical threat and a modern psychological one, so it responds the same way it always has. Alert, tense, ready to run from something that was never actually chasing you. So the next time you feel that flicker of unease walking to your car in an empty parking lot, don't dismiss it as irrational. It isn't irrational at all. It's ancient. It's the same system that kept a small, clawless, slow-moving primate alive against odds that should have wiped that primate out entirely. Height to see danger coming. Numbers to make it harder to strike. Sweat to outlast it. Fire to hold it back in the dark. Watchfulness shared so no one had to face it alone. You didn't inherit fear by accident. You inherited it because it worked. And somewhere underneath every modern anxiety you've ever felt, that same ancient system is still quietly doing its job, scanning the shadows for something that stopped hunting you a very long time ago.